Well, this passage from 1 John was read in the service on the day that Rebecca and I were married. As a gift to me on our wedding day, Rebecca gave me a clock, and engraved on the face, on the front of the clock, was the last verse that we just heard read. We love because God first loved us. When we were moving into our first apartment, that clock found a home on the top of our chest of drawers in our apartment. And when we moved from Atlanta to Jefferson City, we put the clock in the same spot on the same chest of drawers. It's now been sitting on the corner of that same chest of drawers for over 4 years here in Roanoke. We love because God first loved us. The top of our chest of drawers, though, is a spot in our house where clutter collects. A stray pacifier, an empty baby bottle, Nerf darts that somehow ended up in the floor of our bedroom, a medical bill that's due, a sock that's missing its mate, a bottle of sunscreen. I do not like it that our chest of drawers collects clutter. I like a clean bedroom. I want my children's toys off the floor. I hate it when you can't find the matching sock. I want bills filed and paid. I want the chest dusted and the clock gleaming. Now, a dusted chest of drawers, beautifully arranged, featuring a clock prominently displaying "We love because God first loved us," makes a great Pinterest shot or something to put on Instagram on your anniversary. But a love that always comes across as clean and organized and on display, that is not the love that 1 John is talking about today. It's not that romantic, sentimental, "oh, look at me" love that we're reading about. Here we read this formula: God is love. This means that God is the author of love, and that love has been made known, not in a vague way, but in a specific way. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. So you want to know what ultimate, holy, divine love is? It's a child born to two impoverished parents in the midst of a census whose only bed is a cattle feeding trough. It's Jesus encountering a rich young ruler and encouraging him to sell all he has, give his money to the poor, and come and follow him. It's Jesus encountering 5,000 people when he is tired from teaching and healing, but he has compassion on them and he feeds them out of God's abundance. Love is the master who removes his clothes and wraps a towel around his waist and washes the feet of those who would deny, betray, and flee him at his hour of greatest need. Love is Jesus as he hangs from a cross, looking down on his mother, the one who first showed him what love is, and looking at his disciple and saying, "Woman, here is your son. Son, here is your mother," loving those people even with his dying breath. Love is Jesus and Simon Peter on the beach after resurrection over a breakfast of fish and bread. Jesus asking Simon, "Do you love me?" An act of forgiveness, a repurposed life. God's love was made known to us in this way. And so if you've ever known in your life somebody who made sacrifices for you, someone who's seen your foibles and your flaws and cared for you, someone who's gone out of their way to show you compassion, that swelling, that warming of your heart, your tongue that gets twisted as you try to offer your gratitude, if you've experienced that, then you know something of love. And if you know something of love, then you know something of God. So take that experience, wherever it's been in your own life, and transport it into the narrative we proclaim as Christian people. God loved you to death. Before we could confess our love for God, before we could prove we were of any value to God, with full knowledge of all the ways we do not measure up to God or to anybody else's standards, God loved you and me to death on a cross, refusing to be God without us, sinners and failures that we are. Now, in most of our human endeavors, most of our human understandings of love, when we give or serve or help another, we want them to do something for us in return. It's this continual transactional negotiation. We do nice things for people who have been nice to us. We could call that payback. Other times, we offer ourselves in kindness, serving others in hopes that one day when we're in need, they might come and support us. We can call that a down payment. And one more. There are some who give without expectation of the transaction coming full circle back on themselves, but we do those kind things. We do those acts of love to draw praise, affection, to get the feeling we want for the gratitude we receive from others. We want dividends. It's all transactional negotiation. Payback for those who have loved us. A down payment of love to try to get love from somebody else. Or dividends that our ego needs for our good deeds. So God's love. This is why we turn this into a religion, because it defies logical reason and rational thinking. God's love in Jesus does not demand anything from us in return. God didn't love the world in Jesus and say, now, you get this love if you do all the right things. There aren't requirements for prayers that we need to offer to God, money that we have to give over to God, practices of piety we must maintain. In this is love, not that we loved God, but that God first loved us. And the magnificence of that holy love, when we come to experience it, when we're wrapped up in this story, we are overwhelmed by a need to respond. Then love the world with the same love you have received. Don't do it to show God how good you are. Don't do it because you fear God might stop loving you. That can't happen. We love because God first loved us. So love is not a well-dusted chest of drawers with gleaming Bible verses on the face of wedding gift clocks. It's the cluttered and dusty chest with the pacifier, because love is getting up in the night when the baby cries out and giving her a bottle so that your spouse can get some needed rest. And that love is an outflow of God's love within us, not a deed done begrudgingly or to try to coax future favors. Love is paying the bill for the medical procedure, even though it wasn't you who needed that care. And there's no bitterness that flows, for it is just gratitude for God's love for us. Love is playing with kids after working all day, even if toys end up in your bedroom, because the need to maintain a certain image gives way to the joy that you see on their faces. Love is doing the laundry for the family, even when socks go missing, because you love them with the love of God from the very depth of your soul. It's a cycle. The love of God pours into us, and as we welcome that love freely offered, we grow in our ability to offer love freely. Now, I've got to come clean. I've got to come clean right now. That is a whole lot easier for me to say, standing in a pulpit, than it is for me to live. You want to know the reason why I really think God had Rebecca give me that clock as a wedding present with 1 John 4:19 etched in it? I think it was because God knows that in my nature, I am so opposed to that way of life that I need a daily reminder every day as I walk out of the bedroom. Because there are many days that I want to keep a list. I want to keep a list of all the things I've done in love for my family, for Raleigh Court Presbyterian Church, for our neighborhood. And I want to show that list so that either I'll get fawned all over for how self-giving I am, and I'm so special, or I'm doing those good deeds with an ulterior motive to get people to do stuff for me. And I got one more sin to confess. I'm prone to love and serve those who have loved me because I feel guilty for putting you out, for having to do something for me. And so I'm trying to atone for the fact that you felt the need to do anything for me in the first place. That is not love freely given out of gratitude and joy. So if you've ever wondered what I'm doing when I stand at that font in that silence during the prayer of confession, that's part of it. What I realize in those moments is that my bitterness and my need for praise and my attempts to manipulate other people to get things from them, it comes because I've yet to really believe that God could possibly love me in Jesus. And that God would ever do that freely. I still believe that lie, that I am worth what I produce. I'm valuable because of what I do for you. And that's idolatry. Because God has already loved me, as God has already loved you. And I just picture God screaming at us, "What's it gonna take for you to believe me?" We love because God first loved us. It is perhaps the most radical claim of the entire gospel, and the most difficult for us to ever truly accept and finally live. And so today, I'm going to come to this table, and I'm going to invite you, in the name of Jesus Christ, to come to this table. A table where a feast of love is prepared. And it's not a potluck. God didn't expect you to show up with your contribution to the dinner table. And after the meal, the elders aren't going to come back out through the congregation and hand you your check to pay for what you've eaten. And you don't have to volunteer to stay after service and help wash the dishes. And God doesn't expect you to get a thank you note in the mail Tuesday morning. Remember, tomorrow's a holiday. Tuesday morning to show God your gratitude. This is grace. This is grace. It is a sign of God's love for you and for me and for anyone who struggles to believe that this news could even be possible. But if our minds and our hearts can begin to accept it, a miracle can happen. We can begin to love freely, to give our life away for others without keeping score and without seeking favors. In the clutter, in the chaos, in the challenge, we love because God first loved us.